Hi, guys. Welcome to class 8 of Fundamentals of Legal Research. I don't know why I did that. So today we're going to be talking about secondary sources. We're working on chapter 7 of HAMES. It's a pretty easy module. So a secondary source, they talk about primary sources of law. We've talked about primary laws, cases, statutes, administrative rules and regs, ordinances, things like that, are all primary sources of law. So secondary sources, I don't really call them secondary sources of law because they're really not a source of law. So a secondary source is either to explain the law or point you to a primary source of law. Okay, so when we're doing our legal writing, I don't want you to ever cite a secondary source when you can cite an actual source of law. Okay. It's really just the secondary sources are there to help you. Okay. I don't really understand this legal concept. Let me look at the secondary source and it can help you. It's just somebody else's interpretation of what the law is. Okay. So typical tools that you're going to find in any kind of secondary source, just like, you find them in other books. You have an index. Okay. So you have a word you've never heard of. Uh, Forfeiture by wrongdoing, you go to F in the index, and then it tells you what page in the book it's on. A table of contents at the beginning of this source, which tells you, the different chapters and what appears in each. They'll have table of contents, table of abbreviations, prefatory material. Is this in here? Yeah, prefaces. So that prefatory material will give you what's in the book or volume of books, and kind of tells you maybe how to use it. If you've never used something before, look at the prefatory material and it'll help you learn how to use that source. Pocket parts, remember we've talked about pocket parts. So if it's a bound volume, they might have updated paperback cardboard little pocket parts to update it. So if we look at the textbook, they have some screenshots. If I could get there, here we go. Of what they look like. Okay, so this is your index. So if I was interested in sheriffs, police, and constables, okay, then, maybe deputies, then I would know to go to section 6 in the book. Or if I went to failure to enforce laws, I would go to sheriff section 46. And if it was federal marshals, I wouldn't look under sheriffs. I would look under federal marshals. So it's kind of telling me where to go. So this would be sheriffs section 149 or evidence section, blah, blah, blah. So you use the index and it tells you then where to go. Okay. Then they're going to have tables of cases and tables of statutes cited. So any statute cited here in the AmJur, they tell you what pages they are on and what the general topic is. Here's cases cited in the American Law Report. So this is the table of cases. So these are just kind of screenshots of what these pages are going to look like when we're looking through them. Okay. Table of cases. Okay, we kind of went through there. Okay, how do we search them? So if I have one of these secondary sources, usually I'm just going to go to the index. I'm going to go to the back on the topic that I have. An index can be a multi-volume set, right? There can be A through C in number 1, D through F in another one. So make sure you have all of them to find. The index will usually be at the end. If it's a multi-volume thing, your index is going to be at the end. If it's a one book, which is going to be at the end of that book. And it'll be alphabetically by topic. So if I'm interested in evidence, I'm going to go to E and see what I can find. Sometimes, just like we just saw there with the U.S. Marshals, it might send you to another part of the index. So if I'm looking under hearsay, it might bump me to say, look under evidence, subtopic hearsay. And then it gives you your topic and it gives you section, or sometimes it might give you a page number if it's only one book. And then you go there and then you read it. That's kind of how you go. How do we use them? So, we're like, okay, I'm at this topic and section. Maybe it gives me a summary on that. Well, I don't want to cite that because that's not real law. Maybe it gives me some law review articles. Don't cite those. It might give me a head note. Don't cite that. But it will give you, you read it and you're like, oh, now this makes more sense because this is in regular language rather than case law or statutory language. And then it tells me at the end where it's getting this information from. It's citing me to actual laws like cases and statutes. And that's what then from there, I'm going to go pull those cases and statutes so I can actually find the real law. So when you are doing the research, use the secondary sources for what they're meant to do. They're meant to kind of give you a summary and help you understand what these words mean, but don't cite them as law because they are not laws. Okay, so our first category, we're going to talk about our legal encyclopedias. So legal encyclopedias, you probably are all too young to remember having the Encyclopedia Britannica. We had the World Book. I think it was cheaper in your house where you could go and get any topic in the world for your school report. So that's kind of the equivalent in legal terminology. Okay, so we have the different kinds of ones, different ones. AMJUR, which is the American Jurisprudence, and there's different editions. I think they're on the second one. That's going to be part of your homework to look up something in the AMJUR on Westlaw. Another one is the Corpus Juris Secundum, so body of law second, CJS. Then for Illinois law, what we have in the Harper Library, and I think it's on Westlaw too, what you're going to be doing as part of your homework is Illinois Law and Practice. I think that's put out by Nichols. Yeah, let's see. Maybe this is, I don't know if this link will work. This is what it will look like on the shelf. Oh, pretty. Little brown volume. Okay. So it's organized like an encyclopedia. There's alphabetical topics. They're broad, and then there's subtopics within. You're going to go. The thing about AMJUR and CJS is that they're like a nationwide encyclopedia. So you might look at it and you're like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what you're looking for. And then you're looking at the cases that support that section, and there's nothing in your jurisdiction. Okay, so check when you're looking at the citing references that support these topic sections, make sure that it's actually in your jurisdiction. So you go to the index all the way at the end, find your key terms and words, you look at the subtopics, then go to the topic section that they give you, read the summary, look at what supports it, find primary law citations. Don't just photocopy this encyclopedia article and say, hey, I do my research. That's not research. That's not law. That's not what anybody who's giving you this assignment is asking you to do. Okay, so those are legal encyclopedias. Now you have ALRs, American Law Reports, and they're kind of a little bit of an animal into themselves. They, rather than being a general legal encyclopedia, they have specific areas of law, and then they write little articles on that specific area of law. There's an American Law Report ALR set for state law and a set for federal law, but the state law is all 50 states. So again, you might have an ALR article that you think is perfect, but it might not apply in your state. So there you go. It has articles, and then in the articles, it will have leading cases, so the best cases on those, and then these annotations. So the annotations will be other case sites that support the articles. Okay, we're already in the 6th edition, the federal for the state one, and then the federal one is in the 2nd. We don't have this in the library anymore. When they remodeled it, they got rid of the ALR. So again, you go to the index first. Make sure you're in the one that you want to be in. Is it federal? Is it state? and it'll refer to you to these different articles. There's over 400 legal topics. Make sure you're looking at the topic. And again, don't photocopy it and say it's your research. Okay. These are all the things that you have in an ALR article. You have your contents, research references. I'm trying to see if they have it. Oh, they do have it. One in the book. So let me show you what an ALR article is going to look like. Okay. Okay, so here's my article. It's in the second federal one, admissibility of evidence procured by torture. Okay, so you have your title, you have just a general article, you have your outline. Oh, this is just a summary, index, table of cases, a lot of stuff. Okay, so that's what it kind of looks like. Oh, here's some words. Supplemented, it means it's kept up to date. So you might have pocket parts. Superseded means it's no longer valid. So they take it out and they replace it with something else. Okay, so is your research question state law or federal law? Look at the index for that one, federal or state. Find your articles, find the law from your jurisdiction, and then you can pull those cases or statutes, whatever is that. And here, remember, it's a secondary source. I remember my husband talking to me about like this new attorney, and he asked him to do research, and he was like photocopying ALR articles. And I was like, oh, my Harper students wouldn't do that. Were this guy to go to law school. So make sure my Harper students still wouldn't do that. Okay, all stuff. Make sure that remember that if the article was superseded by something else, you can't cite to it anymore. All right, our next topic are treatises. Don't confuse these with treaties, agreements between two different governments. Treatise is a book or a multi-volume book on a specific legal practice area. I think in the library we have Williston on contracts, right? They are written by these legal scholars to help people understand specific areas of the law. They will also provide cites to primary authority. Sometimes they're called horn books, nutshells, that law students used a lot as well. I have you looking at one treatise in your homework. Okay, so look through, if you have, say you need something on divorce law, look through the library catalog and see if there's something on divorce law. Use your table of contents and index to find your specific topic. And it just tells you kind of some general stuff. And then if you're going to be needing to cite law, find the cases and statutes that support that discussion. Yeah, and make sure if you're reading a treatise that it's up to date. Bound books are not always as up to date as online stuff. If there's no pocket part, it might be out of date. You might have to go and shepherdize and make sure that the statutes cited therein are still good law. Okay, our next category are periodicals. So periodicals are materials that come out periodically. So you have kind of two categories. You have your law reviews, and law reviews are usually associated with a law school. The law review articles can either be written by professors or students. And what happens is, like say a law student will come up with a very, very specific topic, and they research the heck out of it. And they tell you what the status of law is. And that's one of the assignments you're going to be having for your homework, finding a law review article on a certain topic and kind of giving a summary of it. So law reviews are super helpful if you find a law review article on your particular topic. But remember that when you are doing law review research, the law review, the applicability or it ends on the date it was written, right? So you have to make sure you update the research to see if something has happened since this law review article was written, anything's changed. new cases, new statutes that come out. And of course, make sure they're talking about the jurisdiction that you're interested in. Lexis and Westlaw is kind of the best place to find law review articles, or if it is a law review from a particular law school, you can go to the law school website maybe to find those law review articles. Okay, then you have professional journals. So like a bar association, the American Bar Association, the Illinois State Bar Association will have magazines that they publish periodically. And like I have my Illinois Bar Journal in front of me right now. So it's like what's going on in the law, pointers from a veteran trust and estates attorney, liberties and lockdowns during a pandemic. So all sorts of articles on particular topics. Keep you abreast of new developments. That's kind of what, lawyers read that, like, hey, what's going on in either my jurisdiction or my area of law. So how do we search them? Short answer is Google. You can Google for some of those, but back in the day, you would go to this index of legal periodicals in a library, which indexes articles. But really, you're going to be looking at this stuff on Lexis and Westlaw. It's kind of not very, even if you found the perfect article, then they wouldn't have that at the library anyway. So you really want to go through an online database to find those things. Okay, our next category are the restatements. Okay, so the American Law Institute is like a think tank of legal scholars. And what they do is they kind of go through different areas of law, like torts or contract, and they look through the common law, right, the case law, and they turn that into like a code format for that. So they'll have like torts, restatement of torts 402A has strict liability, and strict liability applies when boom, 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 all of your elements. So it's kind of cool, but the restatement isn't law. The restatement is, someone kind of a model law, like what they would think. They're kind of looking through all jurisdictions and seeing what most states do. But it's not the law unless a state adopts it. So a state can say, yeah, a court will say, I like restatement section 402A for our strict liability law. Okay. So it doesn't mean that the restatement is the law. It means that what those elements are now the law, they've been adopted. So just be careful about citing to restatements. Make sure when you're citing to a restatement, you're also citing to the case that adopts the restatement as law. Okay, so there's a bajillion, not really a bajillion, but a couple dozen kinds of restatements. So agency, conflicts, property, security, torts, trusts, a lot of different kinds of restatements. Oh, like here, I'll show you what it's in the book. Periodicals. Where's my restatements? Okay. That's still periodicals. Oh, I must have skipped one, but let's get to, here's my restatements. Come on. Page 185. It should be on page 185. Oh, here it is. So this is an example of what it looked like. So restatement of torts second, section 71 talks about force in excess of privilege or self-defense or things like that. So that is our restatements. Okay, the next one I want to talk to you about is loose leaf services. So think of like a binder, right, with a bunch of little loose leaf pieces of paper in there. Okay, so this is probably multi-volume set on a specific area of law, usually something that's administrative. So there's a lot of rules and regs that are coming out all the time. Think tax, environment, labor. BNA, Bureau of National Affairs and Commerce Clearinghouse, which is also known as CCH, are the big publishers of these loose leaf services. When I was back in college, I worked in a law library, and one of my jobs was these things would come in the mail. So you get like a little packet of a bunch of pieces of paper, and you'd go to the office of whoever had this loose leaf binder in their office, and it would be like, take out pages, 4221 to 4223 and replace them with these other ones. You have the big rubber finger to make sure that you didn't stick to the pieces of paper. Okay, so back in the day, this was like super current, like how you couldn't get anything more current. Sometimes you'd get something every couple of days or once a week. Okay, so now, because some people still have these in their office, they like having the binders and going and looking and having it at their fingertips. But now this has been largely replaced as online subscriptions by companies like BNA and CCH. Other secondary sources that are really, really important are form books. So form books, like I want to know how to draft a complaint in the state of Illinois. I can go to a form book and see different kinds of pleadings. So I can see what a complaint looks like. What are the, to make sure I have all of my stating the proper things for my cause of action. Contracts. I want a contract for sale of a property, or I want a form will or something like that. So I can look at these forms and change it around to my particular factual situation. I think even like IRS forms. Okay, so that's a form book. Super duper helpful in a law practice. Pattern jury instructions. So if you're in litigation and you're doing trials all the time, before your case is submitted to the jury, the judge asks you, well, how would you like me to instruct the jury? And it starts out with pattern jury instructions, like, that they have to be impartial and what the burden of proof is. And then depending upon the law and the facts of the case, you have additional jury instructions. But you start with a pattern to see, make sure you're not missing everything. Super important part of a trial practice. There's a lot of arguments about what an appropriate instruction for a juror is. So that's a different kind of a form book with pattern jury instructions. Legal dictionary, we talked about that the first day of class. So we have Black's versus Law Dictionary, which is the standard. West has words and phrases. I've shown you the online one on the Legal Information Institute. Fine Law, I think, also has a legal dictionary. And then you have a legal thesaurus. So legal thesaurus gives you synonyms. So I'm looking, what the heck, another word for a contract. You have covenant, agreement, right? So if you're searching under what you think is a legal term and you're coming up with zero, you might want to go to the online or go to a legal thesaurus and find synonyms and search under those synonyms to see if that is more helpful for you. Secondary sources online, like I talked about a minute ago, it's kind of harder to find free sources for secondary sources because it's not like they're published by the government, right? They're published by people who are doing this to make a living. So for like law reviews, you might be able to get stuff for at the law school library to find their law review articles online. The Cornell site has some legal articles in that WEX, so it's kind of got an ALRE thing. Well, they'll have a topic and give you a summary and then give you cases that support that summary. But really, online paid databases like Lexis and Westlaw are the best places to find secondary sources online. Oh, this is in the chapter. But, whenever you're writing legally, take yourself out of it, right? Don't use the first person. Don't say, I believe, we believe, our position is, right? Your audience is the judge. You want to say the court says, the law says. Don't put yourself in it. Okay, so nice quick lecture today. Make sure you do the rest of the things in the module and get all your homework done, and have a great week.